Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Geo Explains. In this series, I try to drill down concepts or industries or mechanisms that are relevant in the industry as of now. And for today's video, we're going to be talking about decentralized physical infrastructure networks, or as known as DePins, right? This is an industry that has been gaining a lot of traction, a lot of attention recently. And even though it's not a new industry per se, as of now, we're seeing some developments and some interesting projects coming up. So hope you enjoyed this, and let's get right into it. So when we look into just the general concept of decentralized physical infrastructure networks, what we're talking about here is basically an attempt to decentralize physical infrastructure for the personal use, right? So you could think of your computer, your internet, your storage, anything that you may have individually, but it's not being used. You can now offer this to people who need it at a lower cost, right? So before DePins, or if you go for the traditional channel, you're probably going to be hiring a service from a provider that is centralized. So for example, if you're looking for cloud, you look for AWS. If you're looking for storage, you look for another centralized provider. But what DePin is trying to do is really give the power to our hands, right? So if I have my computer here and I have enough storage to offer to people and to monetize on this, why not, right? So just as a ballpark example, if Amazon is charging $1 per gigabyte and I'm not making any money and I have a couple of gigabytes left in my computer, why not just offer this to someone who needs, and instead of $1, I can charge 50 cents or 60 cents, right? A discount to a very large, centralized, and trustworthy provider. I give a discount and I do this on my own. This benefits all sides, right? Because on the user side, the one who has the demand, they will be getting a lower cost. So because it's an idle infrastructure for me, I'm not using it, any money is additional money. On the other hand, for myself, again, the return I'm getting with this leftovers are zero. But with DePin, I can offer this to someone else and monetize on this, right? So it's kind of a flywheel concept that this image is trying to show a little bit. So if you look into this, you have the DePin apps, you have the end users who really need the utility, you have the DePin protocol, right? So the founders and the culture of that protocol. You have the token value, which is pretty much the investors. So people who are looking into this network and they think it's undervalued, or they're acquiring the token because they require the token to use the solutions, right? So the token is a very, very central part of this network flywheel. We also have the miners or deployers, right? So these are the people who are producing the services in the platform. And we also have the third-party providers, right? The third-party developers, apologies. So when you think of this as in a simple way, it's basically users or personal individuals offering their infrastructure, and this can be any type, from sensors to Wi-Fi to storage to computational power. So it can be anything that you have as a physical infrastructure and that you can offer to other people. And when we look into a couple of trends or the market trends, we see that there are mainly 5 sectors that have been gaining a lot of traction: compute, storage, data network, wireless, and sensor, right? And if we look into since June of this year, for example, 2023, we had a market cap that was negative 10% in terms of market cap change, right? But if we fast forward to the recent months or the recent weeks, we see that all of these are at 20% positive returns. And this really shows here, this increase or this average increase that we can see here gradually can really show the interest to this type of service that is happening right now, right? So there are a couple of examples like Helium, for example, that are old projects that did not do well and are kind of still there and still developing, but people lost a little bit of faith in their future, right? But now maybe there is another hope for not only the old protocols that were already working on this, but new protocols that bring innovative solutions and innovative mechanisms to make this actually work for the first time, right? If you look into the 5 categories, I think all of them are very interesting, and they're all focused on, again, idle resources from individuals who have them, but they just don't monetize at all. looking to the flywheel a little bit more in terms of economic incentives instead of the product that we thought at first, I would like to take this Messari research. They really kind of drill down on a simple flow of what is the cycle that DePins go through, right? So what we have is we have the network. Let's start here on the right side. We have the network supply side. And as this supply grows, so as more people and more companies are willing to provide or to offer their idle infrastructure to other people, this supply grows, right? And as the supply grows, the platform starts being very cost competitive. So as we have more people wanting to, let's say, for example, share a little bit of their Wi-Fi or their wireless data, this cost goes down because you have more supply. And then as cost goes down, developers, product builders, and end users are more attracted to it. So if now I'm paying $1 for Amazon, but someone else, as I said in the example, is charging 50 cents, why not take a look at it and see if it works the same way, right? So these people are attracted with an increase in supply. With more people using it, we have fees that are generated, right? So these end users will start using the services and they will start generating fees. And these fees go to the people who are offering, right? And then the protocol token model creates a relationship between network usage and token price. And how is that so? So if for me to hire a service, I need to pay it with tokens, or I need to lock tokens, or I need to stake tokens. If I need to do anything with the token, the more we have demand for the service and the more this network is used, the more demand we'll have for the token as well. And depending on how the protocol designs the economic incentives, this can really, really tie into token price. So if all of the tokens used, for example, just in a simple mechanism, it's not the only way or the right way to do it, but let's say you burn the tokens that are used. The more people require that service, the more people will be paying for it, the more tokens will be burnt, and then the circulating supply will be going down, which tends to push prices up, right? And then these rewards are distributed to the people who are offering. So it's kind of a win-win situation where I don't monetize what I have, and now I do. And at the same time, end users or devs or product builders have the demand for a service that it's a lot more expensive than what I am willing to offer. So it's a very beautiful kind of flywheel that, if done the right way, can generate a lot of benefits for all of the agents in the chain. Moving forward, there are a lot of players in this sector already. So as you can see in this image by Coin98 Analytics, there are a bunch of different sectors, right? So I think the ones that are most well-known are storage networks, a lot exemplified with Filecoin, for example. We also have the compute networks, and here is more indexers, machine learning, and other purposes. Here, some relevant players are the Graph, for example. It's a very, very old protocol that has been doing very well. They have a super interesting economic incentives, and they're also in this narrative, right? The Graph is very old. The DePin is a narrative that is picking up now, but they fit there, right? And then we have many others like healthcare, energy, smart home, or any others. So as you can see, there are a lot of protocols here for you to go out and explore if you want to know more, and if you want to try to find opportunities of protocols that are still in the early stage, but have a lot of potential in the future. To kind of put numbers into it and not be just in the concept, in July, Messari did this research and compared a couple of DePin infrastructure protocol providers versus centralized providers. And they were doing comparisons in terms of cost, right? And the difference were astonishing. At least for me, when I saw this, I didn't know that the cost was this different, but this really, really, really nails down to the value proposition of such sector, right? So if you look into storage, for example, so when we look into hot storage, Amazon will be charging around $23 per terabyte, while storage, for example, is charging only $4, right? On the other hand, SIA, for example, is charging 77 cents, and Google is charging $20. So we see that the decrease in cost here is massive, right? If you look into cold storage, for example, Filecoin is offering at 19 cents per terabyte, while Amazon is offering at $3.6. So that's more than 10 times more expensive than what the DePin infrastructure is able to provide. right? And you can also look into the difference between the compute. So if you look into Akash, which is the cloud computing protocol, it's a $31 per month versus $138 for Amazon or $148 for Google. So if you imagine end users, product builders, and people who really demand this kind of service, and they look into these costs, it's very clear of why they should at least try one of these solutions that offer a decentralized physical infrastructure network, right? So I think this is one of the most interesting and one of the biggest proofs or assumptions that can make this sector be something with a lot of potential in the next coming years. So let's look into some examples just so that you have some names to look into if you're interested in this type of industry. I think one of the well-known ones is Filecoin, right? Filecoin is not a new product. It's been there for years. And basically they focus on the storage part. So a client makes a time-limited deal and they say, hey, I need this many gigabytes or terabytes, and this is how much I'm willing to pay. And then the providers, so people who are really willing to offer that service and to give up their storage for that monetization, for those tokens or fees, they generate a proof of replication saying, hey, I verified, I received the data, and it's stored here, right? And then throughout time, so while this deal is open, me as the consumer, I need the storage to be there and to be guaranteed, right? So I don't want to pay fees. The provider goes, proves that they have the storage there, but then right after they delete all my data and they sell this space for someone else because I need that data there so that I can access whenever needed, right? So over time, what do? They do proofs of space-time, which is pretty much proves that you still have that data, right? So they choose a random part of the data and providers have to prove that they still have that subset of the data. And then doing that on an ongoing basis, they guarantee that people are still keeping the storage intact and they're still providing the services that they were supposed to. And if there's something wrong, so if the provider deletes the storage or doesn't go through with the deal as it initially planned, they're slashed, right? So there's a penalty to ensure that the financial incentive is there for people to really play by the rules. So this is a very simple and clear example of how DePin can function. Another interesting one, and for me, one of the most interesting protocols that we have now, not only in DePin but in blockchain, is the graph, right? And then here is a little different. They're talking a lot more on indexing, on accessing data, and having indexers do the work for other people who need to access it, right? So in crypto, it's very hard for you to find data, especially clean data. So it's a lot easier to go into an Etherscan, for example, and pull data from there. But if you want to go native and go directly into the Ethereum blocks and pull data from there, you have to clean a lot of stuff. The blockchain is not easy to read, right? So, and since there are a lot of blocks and a lot of information, finding the exact information you need takes a lot of time and a lot of computing process. And that's why indexing is so important for blockchain. And when you think of indexing in the sense of DePin, it's not the best example. And some people may even challenge if the graph is a DePin narrative or it's in the DePin and infrastructure. But the concept is there, right? We have indexers who have computational power, who really want to provide the service, and they get rewarded for it by consumers who need the data. So it's kind of this overarching concept of the blockchain that you have the demand side, you have the supply side, and you get rid of the intermediaries, right? And this is what's happening here. So I think the graph is a good example that it's not exactly how people think of the physical infrastructures, but it can fit there, right? Another example, and one that has been getting a lot of attention recently, is Render, right? And I'm not going to extend too much here because all of these projects have many different ways of functioning and many different economic incentives. But basically, Render is a protocol to help to offer rendering services to end users, right? So if I'm an artist, or if I have a company, or if I'm just an individual and I need to render a lot of files, I need to render videos or heavy rendering services, instead of myself waiting for days or having to spend a lot of time to render this myself and to give up on this computational power for the other things that I have to do, I can just request a job. So I say, hey, I need this rendering service. Here is my offer. Someone on the other side, so on the supply side, pick up that and say, hey, I'm good to provide that to you. And then this exchange happens. The person does the rendering, gets the tokens. The person who required or who requested the job gets the job done and pays the fees for it. And everyone's happy. So another great example of how this can work. Akash is another one that has been getting traction recently, and they're more focused on the cloud computing and cloud provision. And it's just very interesting. Again, this is a more recent research by Masari from September of this year. And if you compare the cost of the GPU hourly rates, it's just astonishing, right? So if you look into, let's say, NVIDIA A100, for example, of 40 gigabytes, while Akash is charging $1, Amazon is charging $4. Google, for example, is at 88 cents. So for this specifically, Akash is not that competitive, right? But if you just look on average how these costs work, so 150 versus 512 versus 367 versus 150 versus 221, they're usually lower or right at the average of the industry, right? And some others, they're not even provided by a lot of these other centralized players. So again, the hourly rates, the dollars per terabyte, the cost, the efficiency, and all of this is the big selling point of this industry. And if this keeps proving it right, so if costs are still low when we scale this, then there is a clear use case and a clear value prop for the entire sector. So keep a lookout for this, and always try to compare. If you're in this industry and if you are one of the people who require these services, go around, take a look at the decentralized providers' offerings and see how they compare with the current centralized ones that you are using. And lastly, and this is more out of curiosity since it's a very, very new protocol, we have Grass. So Grass is a Wi-Fi sharing protocol. So basically what they say is your bandwidth of internet rarely is used at 100%. So what if you could share part of this bandwidth with people who don't have enough and monetize on it without changing anything? So you still keep your network, you still keep using your internet, but the extra bandwidth that you have, you'll be accruing those tokens from people who really require. And why do I say this is just as an example? Because Grass is live, but still not monetizable. So as of now, the payment that you get is in points, right? And these points are not tokens at all as of now. They say that they will be, but as of now, they're not. So for me, it's just an experimental protocol that we can keep a lookout for, keep an eye out for. And again, it ties really into this narrative of what if I could monetize the other part of my internet that is just idle, right? So if I'm sleeping or if I'm just using Google and that doesn't require much of my internet, why not just give up that idle part to other people who need it at a lower cost than the centralized providers give to these people and create a win-win situation, right? So my internet's not being used when I'm sleeping, so why not monetize on top of that? And when you think of this at a scale, and if everyone is looking at these opportunities and really thinking, hey, what do I have in my house? What kind of infrastructure do I have that is idle now and that I could put to use for other people who need it? And then we start seeing a lot of use cases from many different parts, right? From many different sectors and industries. So I think this industry, even though it's not a new industry, right now it's getting a lot of traction. So we can see a lot of VC investment coming into it, new use cases coming up, and really become something in the center of attention. So I hope this clears up a little bit, and I really hope you've enjoyed this kind of content. Again, in Geo Explains, I always try to bring some concepts and try to drill down to something that is understandable. And hopefully now at the end of this video, you're good to talk to anyone about DePin and maybe even go out and do your own research to find protocols to interact with, or to think of your own digital physical infrastructure that you have at home that you can put to use and monetize that from something that it's generating zero revenue. But that's it for today, and we'll see each other on the next one. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like and subscribe down below, and let me know in the comments as well what other topics you would like me to bring, and I'll be more than happy to do so. Till the next time, bye bye.